Hey guys, welcome back to Parkitect. In this episode, we'll be exploring Western Roundup. This is the fourth map in the installation of the campaign. And let's just see what the description reads. It reads, an old Wild West town that's seen better days. If you can get past the heat, there's lots of space for a large amusement park. So heat's involved? I didn't realize heat was involved. So that means there's going to be hot weather on this map alone. Okay, so we have to get at least 500 guests in the park. Have a happiness rating of 75. Sell at least 800 park guests and complete by year 2. That might be a goal, or that might be this 800 park tickets might get me a what's it called? A reward maybe. So let's just jump into the map and see what it's all about. I'm gonna guess that mostly the scenery that I want to have is gonna be like, I don't know, Western. So here is the front of the park. Here's a carousel. I like the carousel. What's the carousel's name? Stables. Oh, that's very fitting. Actually, I think I want to redesign it. I think I want to add a barn. Maybe over here, or yeah, a barn. A barn would make sense to add to it. And then here's so we actually get a restaurant in the map, actually, like an actual facility. Okay, this is cool. What does it look like inside? Okay, so info, hot dogs, and a drink stand. And then here's the park entrance. Oh, see, this is the first time a park entrance got decorated like this. That's nice. I like that. So the guests spawn, what, over here? Yeah, just a straight shot. How big is this map? Oh, it's quite large. Oh, there's some buying space, I see. Cool. Oh, look, a little abandoned section of the town. Nice, nice. I like it. And then the depot's covered with a nice looking decoration. I like how this looks. I just think some of this styling could have... I'm going to add some better decorations to it. Maybe discolor this, making it a little bit more old. Let's see what rides we get in the beginning. Okay, that makes sense. So carousel and a Ferris wheel. So we'll add the Ferris wheel. Gravitron, jumper, and a twister. Those are all pretty good ones to have. Junior coaster, mine train. Ooh, mine train's right off the bat. Wild mouse and a wooden coaster. There's always a junior coaster in this at this point. Miniature railway. That would be hard to kind of implement. But I could try to implement it. But I always have to build that first, technically speaking. And then we have log flume. Ooh, we should make a log flume ride too. That would be nice, actually. And then shops. So all the shops that we saw earlier. Oh, so vending machine and custom shops. That makes sense. And toilets. Oh, did I see toilets when I... Oh, yeah, there's a toilet right there. So that's good. Scenery-wise, ooh, not a lot. So it looks like we can research Candyland and Adventure. But in the beginning, it looks like we have generic, spooky, medieval, and western. So that's all like... So like in props, most of the... Oh, we don't have spooky props. Oh, see, the burial ground is what I would be using right now. Oof. I don't see it. That's disappointing. Water tower, yeah, okay. Vehicles, that's normal. Water, that's normal. We do have these flags available from the Booms and Blooms DLC. So we have the chimneys. We have some spooky props, but not all of them. Oh yeah, this door will be fun to use from Taste of Adventure. See, I have some Taste of Adventure stuff I can use now, which is actually nice to do, or use actually, because I haven't used it in this map at all, so it would be nice to use said DLC items. Well, yeah, we have these frames now. I can use those for something. Maybe a water tower or a customized water tower. Okay, roofs seem pretty generic. Shapes, or we're going to be using these suckers a lot, because I'm especially going to do that Big Thunder Mountain-esque thing. Ooh, what if we use some of these as like wanted posters or something? I would have to make something. But that would be cool actually to make some custom posters hanging around, and they're like looking for the bandit or something. And then this sign's good to use. I haven't used this before in this scenario. Supports normal, and then all the walls except for brick. Oh, we don't have brick walls. I can't do a proper like bank. Oh man, I want to do a proper bank. It's okay. I'll figure something out. Maybe I'll do like an Adobe bank or something, or maybe more wooden structures. But yeah, okay. So we have some direction. Oh yeah, let's go look at the goals one last time. Ah, see, I knew it. So 800 tickets, 800 park tickets gets me $4,000, and we have to hold it for a month. Oh wow, we have to hold it for a month. Okay, well, that's pretty. It's pretty straightforward actually. So yeah, let's just get on building on this western town, and we'll just get to it. Okay, let's get into Western Roundup and get into the building parts. I had a somewhat of a plan to kind of follow to build the park and add the proper Western things that I wanted from the get-go. So the first thing first was to add that twister ride, and then to kind of decorate it to Western. Western is one of my favorite themes of all time. I love doing Westerns, and the thing about this is that I wanted to make my Westerns a little different, because I'm always doing the same stuff with Westerns, but again, Western theming in general is very easy. So you have your box buildings, they have some type of greeblies on them, or like decorations on their wooden structures, and a sign of what the shop is. Because again, in the West, like out in the West, materials are very scarce, so you have to build pretty conservatively, and I want to try to make my buildings a little bit interesting, or each building has to have its own little characteristics, and so that's kind of was the objective as well. And I've done a Western Roundup playthrough before. That was like a couple years ago, but I had Construction Anarchy involved, and now I'm playing it without it, and so this is going to be a completely different challenge for me, and this is where I kind of was enjoying it from this onward. I wanted to build this little fence here in the corner that covers up the depot and the employee pathway, because that was giving me a really negative deco rating for the twister ride. And that actually helped out, and I added these little triangles on top that suggest that they were cut wood. I wish I could color these pillars, because I would have loved to stain a couple of them in between, but don't have that option at the moment. But I wanted to just figure out how the park's going to feel, how it's going to flow, and just kind of keep going with how it's, just going. So the twister ride got this little awning on top for the guests, because I'm imagining this is going to be hot summers, hot weather, and we need a cover for that, and then you get on the twister ride. And then I wasn't going to delete the carousel. I know that some players do delete the carousel, but I felt like it's disrespectful deleting it. That's my opinion. So I just kept it. But I felt like a barn would make sense to build next to it, because it is called the stables. So on to building a very simple barn. This barn is nothing special, but adding the barn did add some interest for the park, and adding just more buildings to the map makes it a little bit more interesting to look at, because again, the landscape is very flat. Most Western landscapes are flat unless I try to focus on mountain building, which I am going to build a giant Big Thunder Mountain-esque ride, which is way later on. But just wanted to get my footing down and figure out how I wanted the building to look over this little barn. And I'm just using some very very simple techniques. And I added some of my flair with the domers and the little window, those little roof latches. I think were actually a cool idea, and this little covered part that houses some boxes and stuff. Some of the scenery that I got in the beginning I didn't have right off the bat. So like some of the medieval stuff is not in right now because I had to research that, and I was like, I wanted to make some piles of hay because it's for the cows or whatever is in the stables or for the horses, but didn't have that until later. The cool thing about playing through this time was that I had the Booms and Bloom DLC this time, so the trees were going to be a whole different set of trees. I usually use the Mystique tree is my favorite for westerns because it has very pointy looking leaves. That's like perfect. And then I'm going to use maple, and then there's like a special little bush that looks to me, if I paint it brown, it looks like a tumbleweed, and so I use that as a tumbleweed of sorts. So I'm glad that Booms and Blooms was available in this aspect. The one scenery that wasn't available was Candyland or Adventure. because I was researching it toward the end of my playthrough, and guess what? It didn't come out. So I was kind of disappointed because I wanted to use some of the temple pieces to have some tiled roofing somewhere, and it just didn't get to what I wanted. And also, chocolate bar would have been useful for some mechanical parts and or vents I wanted to do on some buildings. So I wanted to make sure that I had some realism to the buildings to suggest that this is a theme park, not just a western town being reappropriated to be a theme park. It was built for the purpose of being a theme park. The main inspiration for most of the buildings in this park is like Knott's Berry Farm, Silver Dollar City, Dollywood. I had some other inspirations, but I just went on I opened up my actual Western folder that I have in my system. So it just had a Western folder that I've had for years, and I just went through it. I'm like, oh, okay, I like this building, this building, this building. Okay, let's go. And I just make sure that I make these buildings kind of, if they're sitting next to each other like this, like these two, this green building, this white building, I want to make sure that they're significantly different from each other. They have like same characteristics, so the roofs are kind of the same in a way, but they're two different roofs. But they have like the same like front awning, so I want to make sure that they're a little bit different. One's taller, one's shorter. I don't want to make buildings the same size because I feel like this just doesn't look nice. So making it staggered helps, and especially because we're stuck on the grid, making your paths windy is what makes the park look more organic than making everything straight. So that's what I try to do, is make everything just, well, not straight. I want to make everything kind of, the buildings were placed kind of messy, the main street's kind of not lined up, so that's kind of was the objective. So as the main street kind of gets built, my main street was kind of a different take, because I kind of based it off of Knott's Berry Farm, because Knott's Berry Farm's ghost town is kind of like, there is a main street, but there's like so many other like little streets around, and there's like a collection of buildings that kind of just sit in the center of the ghost town. And I was kind of aiming for that style where you get to walk around this entire town. So that was kind of the objective. You'll see it later on as we get toward the saloon and some other buildings that were added. These buildings didn't have names yet until like later, so you'll probably see that later on. But I wanted to add the jumper because we need another like flat ride to kind of help out. It's funny because I'm trying to find buildings to be useful, and so I felt like this building would be great for a queue cover for the jumper. And then I'm going to later name, I think I named this some type of supplies building or something. But I also want to make some custom walls, which are made out of pillars and walls, and then these shapes on top for this gingerbreading right on top of the building. So I've done this before with the pillars. It's very time consuming, it's very expensive, but it's worth it to suggest that there's different materials of wood in this town. We now have 3 different types. So we have the spooky walls, is that white building. We have the generic wooden walls, that's the green building. And then we have this customized blue one. And so kind of the objective was to make this look different styles of building techniques. The white and the green building together, I'm going to put in there a staff room, because I didn't feel like the staff room would have made sense to put it behind the depot. So staff room was put there to kind of give my employees a place to kind of go. And I'm always thinking about making my buildings useful. The only building that's not useful in this whole map, I think, is the barn and a couple other. No, actually, I think all of the buildings are useful. They either do a cover queue or they're hiding some type of ride or staff. But onto the first coaster, as I'm losing money because I'm spending so much on scenery, I'm not realizing how much I'm spending. I had to open the park, let the guests kind of walk in and enjoy the 2 rides that we had, or sorry, 3 rides. And I wanted to build my first coaster, and this would be my first Wild Mouse in the campaign. I have not built a Wild Mouse at this point, so I wanted to see if I can just make it look pretty exciting, somewhat realistic. I didn't really follow anything, I was kind of just winging it, and I think this worked out pretty well. I do change the layout a little bit actually toward the bottom to give it some more extra things to do. But I like the mine train, oh my gosh, it has mine carts, but it's a Wild Mouse minecart ride. And the station cover is going to be a very typical station cover, because sometimes doing simple works out, especially in a Western theme, so I just wanted to be very simple about it, didn't want to go over the board with it, and at this point I needed to make money. I think I priced the Wild Mouse at 10 to 12 bucks usually. That's usually how I price my coasters, so it was priced pretty high, and I actually made bulk of my money because right now I'm sitting at 1,000, which is not a lot to play with, especially if I want to place down another flat ride or trees or some other scenery. So as you can see, I'm just sprinkling around some of those bushes, the brown ones that are tumbleweeds, and then doing some more of the mystiques. Oh, and the black pine. Black pine is a good tree too for Western. If you just change it to a darker green, it works really well. So I did use that a couple times. But I'm also trying to pre-plan somewhere my other buildings are going to go for the Western town, and just continue on to generate that funds. And it looks like I'm just running low on money right now. Yikes. I think I pulled out a loan. Yeah. So I pulled out a loan to build a saloon, and I wanted to make the saloon a little bit more interesting than I usually do, so I did some custom plank work with squares. I think they're set to 0.10. I think those are 0.10 cubes. What does it say on the screen? I can't tell. So I think it says 0.10. They might be 0.12. But I wanted to make these planks to kind of give some more characteristics instead of using pathways or wooden walkways. I wanted to have the dirt peeking through the bottom. Suggestion they just laid it on top of the dirt, and then there you go, there's the saloon's deckway. So this is what I did. I literally spent, I want to say 30 minutes building these planks, and then figured out where the buildings are going to go, and then voila, we have a saloon being somewhat built and structured. And I wanted to make it a corner building because I felt like it would be interesting to look at instead of just another square set building. These two buildings in the back are going to be more shops of some sort, but they're also flipped the wrong way. I do flip them later on. I will tell you, I will remind you when they flip again. But I'm always moving stuff, so when I'm building things, some things don't stay where they go. And I always second guess myself, like, okay, well, I'm going to flip this. This doesn't look right. So I'm going to take this building, blueprint it, flip it around, and then sometimes that works, sometimes that doesn't. Sometimes you have to see it. So me being so a visual learner, like I need to see what it looks like. I can't just imagine it sometimes. So I flip them and I'm like, oh, these are better. I need to just do this. So always try that. If you're having difficulties trying to see what you're trying to do, you have to visualize it. So you might have to make some type of prop or additional. Well, yeah, you need to make a example to see it for yourself and to kind of just be like, okay, I like that, and then you go for it. So yeah, I'm just doing the simple Western stuff. I'm also making sure that every building has its own unique color. I've noticed in Western art and theming of other things that it's very bright colors, but they're like disdained to look like they're sun bleached. So like the red is very, very light red, grayish red, kind of, I don't know, sun bleached. Same thing with the yellow and the blue and the green. So I use those, and those kind of, well, they're just kind of like not disdained, they're like desaturated. That's the word I'm looking for. Desaturated colors. So that's always a tip for Western. Just do that. And again, lean into the boxiness of the buildings. That really helps in a Western, even though you're like don't want to because you want to make everything look organic. No, but with a Western, lean into the boxiness. Go for boxes, squares. Yeah, squares, rectangles, all that cool stuff. Just lean into it. It helps. So here's the rotation of the two buildings, and I'm glad I did this because it really helped with the street. And it kind of encompassed this corner. This whole rectangle section kind of was enclosed, and this helped actually to import a depot that I needed to add for some food stuff, and I added a little alleyway for my employees, and that actually helped out making this area a little bit more interesting. And I'm glad I rotated them, and I added an additional outcrop to the saloon. That actually helped out too. And then the trees. I really like this outcome actually because it looked out really good. So again, don't be afraid to change your layouts of your park. If it is easy to do, sometimes it's not, but that was kind of easy for me to do, so that's what I did. On to doing some sign work. This white building actually became a barbershop, which is appropriate, I think, for a western place or a western town. So a barbershop, those are, I use the road barriers as that funny looking spinning sign, whatever. I don't know what it's called. I don't know why barbershops have that. I didn't research into it, but I felt like the barbershop would make sense, and then the word barbershop. And then this building over here near the jumper became supplies, so this is where the miners would go maybe, or this is like the general store technically speaking, but just called supplies instead of saying general store. Kind of wanted to make it simple. And then I needed to do some, there's the depot for the saloon, and right now it's just a drinks and a vending machine stand. That's basically it. If you also notice that up in the corner of the map, I have a pile of flat rides just kind of sitting, and I wanted to generate money off in the corner and try to get to that goal quickly, and I didn't get to the goal, honestly. I could have worked harder on that, but I was also focused on all the other little things about the ride, or everything else about like the theming and stuff like that I wanted to get done, so it kind of didn't happen. But I'm probably going to use that type of trick technique maybe in other maps if it lets me. So I want to just make piles of flat rides in a corner, guests go there, get my money, and then I'm decorating another part of the park or actually make it look nice, because that was the objective for that corner. So as you see, I'm just jumping around from park to park, like different parts of the park, just working on things, making things detailed. And then on to the second coaster. This is going to be our mine train. The mine train went through a couple different layouts in the beginning. Kind of was just trying to make it look interesting. I mean, this is like what, my 1 millionth mine train. I've honestly built so many mine trains in my career that it's just too much. Like, I love making mine trains. It's my favorite thing to do. So I'm not going to reinvent the wheel and just go with the flow and just make it a lot of helixes, a lot of drops. It's going to be entwining itself a lot, and then that's usually the trick is once the mine train's built, the mine train coaster will actually tell me how the mountain range will go, and I'll explain that more in depth when we get into the actual making of the mountain, because right now I'm just building the layout. The bit layout is what is important first, so a lot of helixes here and there, some drops, bunny hops, and it's just entwining itself right now. And I wanted to make a second chain lift, which you're going to see actually right now when I go into this turn, into the second chain lift. And most mine trains have multiple chain lifts, but this time around I think I made one chain lift, so I'm going to change that, because that was not going to happen. So there's the chain lift into a drop, and I see that's what I see with that chain lift. It looks just so out of place to me, and I feel like it doesn't make sense because I'm also imagining what a mountain would look like. That means I would have to build some type of spire near that chain lift to make it justify why that chain lift exists. That's why I'm always thinking about the chain lift is your highest point of your ride, and so the mountain needs to be that high. So I don't like that second chain lift, so that second chain lift goes away. I'll probably explain it in the break, but that's just how I feel about how certain mine trains go. That's why, like for example, Big Thunder Mountain Railroad has two of their chain lifts actually living next to each other. So chain lift 1 and chain lift 3 are basically in the bulk of the mountain, and then chain lift 2 is kind of off on the side, but it still follows a mountain range of some sort, suggesting why this was made. So that's, I think, the tip about mine trains is that chain lifts and high points should be up against like some kind of cliff or spire of rock, and it kind of justifies why that exists. So that's somewhat of the tips I know, but right now the mine train's finished at this point. So I need to open it and have guests start walking in right off the bat because I need the monies. $6,000 is not enough for the mountain range, because I know the mountain range is going to cost me 10k or more. It's not high enough. It looks like I spent more money on flat rides too. So over here I need another restroom. This is going to be like some adobe building, because I knew that Knott's Berry Farm has some adobe stuff, so I was like, well, maybe I can do some adobe buildings. I've never done that before, so this is experimentation right now. So this is just generic walls, and then some other basic stuff. Looks like I'm looking at the campaign goals. Looks like I'm almost to that final goal. So this is just borders. I think I'm gonna do some cylinders for the logs that are in the adobe wall, stuff like that. So yeah, this is basically what an adobe building looks like to me. Yeah, there's the shapes. I think I did them point 15 is probably the one I used, and I used it on grid 8. That's always the trick, is using certain size of the cylinder corresponds with the grid base, but this is just what I know. Yeah, so point 15 and grid 8 usually go well together because you can line them up perfectly, but I wanted the spacing to be a little smaller. And I wanted to try to make them look like they were cut wood, and that just didn't look right with the sharp pyramid piece. So we're actually going to get on to the break, and I will show you so far how the park is running, and I'll see you over there. Okay, let's take a quick look at how the park is operating at this moment for Western Roundup. I want to show you some close-ups of the things that I worked on before, and some of the plans coming up for the completion of this map. So the goal-wise, I completed most of them except for the 800 park ticket goal, which I haven't completed just yet, so I'm probably going to complete that in the next phase of the video. I didn't meet the December year 2 goal. I thought I was going to do it, but I kind of didn't. I wasn't like... It was kind of my fault. I didn't really focus on it, so that happened. This little pile over here, I'm going to get this out of the way first, was my attempt to get guests in here faster, just to get that goal before year 2, and that apparently didn't work, so this is going to disappear. This is going to be taken apart. Maybe some of these rides will be reincorporated into the park in more better areas, and maybe decorated to match the Western theme. So this will change eventually, because this was just my attempt at trying to also make money and get guests in here as quickly as possible, but it didn't work out. But just want to show you how the park is at the moment. I still have my colored blocks here for color choices and stuff like that. That will probably disappear toward the end, but it's just my color palette basically. So the front of the park, I do like how this kind of flows into this area to the Twister ride, and then the cover for these rides, and then I like this back wall here actually, made of pillars. It's kind of, I like the pillars, and I like how it looks like fencing, like a log fence. And then we kind of go down into the town. We have a barber shop, we have a supplies depot type of thing, we have a barn that kind of goes with the stables carousel, so I felt that these were fitting together. And then on to our first coaster, I did a wild mouse. I did some layout adjustments, which I think was necessary, because I think adding a little bit of more, more helixes, more drops, and stuff like that made it sense. And then I added a little shed house, suggesting it could be a transfer track of some sort, but kind of wasn't focusing on realism, just wanted to add an additional building to the theme to add some more interest. And then as we go down into the street, these two buildings actually were facing this way, and I felt that was kind of weird to have this weird narrow street, so I rotated them and made this a backstage alleyway that has access for the employees to go in, go to the break room here, go through this building to a depot here, and then there's a restaurant all inside this saloon. The saloon is almost done. I feel like I should have signs that say saloon here, or try to do some type of custom lettering out of shapes at this diagonal. But since vanilla is very, restricting, it's kind of hard to do type of sign. Maybe I can just do some decorational, or something. Maybe I can try something out. I might have to add some little spheres on top to kind of match the fence, the railing here. That'd be cool. Maybe I can add some of these cylinders, not cylinders, spheres here to kind of just give it some more decoration and stuff like that. And then on to over here is the mine train coaster. So I built the mine train coaster. I like the layout mostly. I think I'm going to change this second chain lift. I don't like where it sits, and I don't like that it goes over the pathway. I want to change it a little bit. So that might happen. So I'm going to change some of the layout a little bit, just to make it a little bit more flow-like, and maybe have a different chain lift somewhere else, or keep with one chain lift. I don't necessarily need to have two chain lifts for a mine train, even though that's mostly how Pacomas and Disney mine trains are. They have multiple chain lifts, and I could do that. I don't know if that's maybe necessary. And I want to make sure that this track here maybe extends out this way and fills this area a little bit more before coming back into the station at this diagonal brake run. Because at the diagonal brake run I can make a switch here for a little shed for the transfer track. We're suggesting that as the main shed for the mine train. And making a pit actually was a cool idea, because I can make some mining equipment and other things and make the shed here and then build all my mountains above it. So that's the objective. So once that's built, I can then finally go over here and dismantle this area and get it to, well, I need to move some of these rides. I think I'm going to move the transformer, put it over here, maybe add some additional buildings. Ooh, I got go-karts. That'd be a fun one to build. And then maybe move the Ferris wheel, probably put it maybe back here, kind of end cap this pathway, and then maybe add a log flume. But then I'm probably going to call it, because I'm right now making pretty good money, 1,400 of that last month, so I'm making 2,000. But I do have 2 loans out. I need to pay one of them off. Probably this big one first, just to get rid of it. So let me just do a little bit right now. That's a little bit better. So it's going to be a little bit of a slower slog, actually, just to pay off some of my stuff. But yeah, overall, I'm having a blast so far making this scenario and building the western stuff. And the big project is to work on the mine train. That's the big thing right now, and it's going to be very Big Thunder Mountain-esque. Let me double check the scenery I have. Oh, maybe I should research a venture, because I want basalt pillars for. So let's switch it to decoration. See if we get that adventure pack, and then maybe I can do some basalt pillar shenanigans and use shapes and rocks as usual. What else could I use as rock pieces? What happens if I use tires as rocks? That would be a cool idea. If I paint them to the color of the rock, use them as like little rock details and stuff like that would be cool. Yeah, maybe. So yeah, we'll just get on to working on the mine train, and I'll see you guys over there. Okay, let's get on to working on the mine train. I'm going to say once again that in the break I said I was talking about basalt pillars, and honestly I would have loved to use the basalt pillars for the rock work, because I've used it before in my American Adventure Big Thunder ride, and I wish I had that option, but I didn't get that because the map does not have those included into this scenario. But again, no need to fret. It's just something that would have added more interest to the mountain at this point, but I just used my basic knowledge of using shapes, cylinders, and discs and rocks to make a mountain Big Thunder-esque. As you can see here, I removed that second chain lift because it was just an eyesore to me, and I'm glad I removed it because overall the whole flow of the mountain and how the coaster sits, it worked out really well and it just looked way better. So you can see here I'm already placing some cylinders and things to kind of get my bearings of where the mountain should start forming and kind of piling up against the coaster. I'm using the coaster as a template. Yeah, template. Yes, a template to kind of suggest where the mountain would flow and why the train track was built. So that was kind of the objective of, that's how I usually do my mine trains, right? Is to, the mine trains kind of dictate where the mountain's going to flow. And it kind of starts from there, and then it actually makes it very easy for me to kind of build the mountain and add all the interesting alcoves and caves and tunnels and all that cool stuff. While I was building the mountain, I did win the scenario, so you saw the little confetti just a couple seconds ago, and so I won the scenario, yay! But I still had to finish the park. The park was not finished. I wasn't going to leave it empty, so this was the objective, was to finish the mountain and kind of finish the park in whole and then send it off on its way. But as you can see, like the little areas where there's emptiness, I felt like those make sense to be spires. There's the main spire in the center of the ride toward the, basically in the middle of the chain lift. This is not going to be as tall as some of my other Big Thunder type rides because I've made some pretty tall spires, and I felt like that in this park it would be a little bit shorter. And since the coaster is more low to the ground, so the spires were going to be very short, not as tall as they usually would be. And I wanted to give some more, well, not make it as tall, and suggesting it's not as expensive. But again, the rock work in itself, I think alone was, I want to say it was like 10K. I spent like a lot of money on the rock work itself. So as you see, I'm just doing some chain lift detailing. So I added a borders and some roofs to kind of suggest a metal piece, and then a covered roof for a little bit up the chain lift. Didn't want to add it all the way. Didn't make sense to do so. I didn't want to make it like Ghost Rider's chain lift that has that cover. So I just wanted to do a little bit. And then it felt like this would make sense to add a small spire up in front here. So the mountain range that Big Thunder Mountains, I think, copies is Bryce Canyon. I think that's in Utah. I can't remember. I think it's in Utah, but it's just very high spikes of rock, and there's like layers of sediment. That's why there's like this brown pattern I'm doing for the rock work. Kind of just cut it up a little bit instead of just having the cylinders empty. Because if the cylinders were empty, the mountain wouldn't look as good. So adding the mixtures of rock and the cylinders and the discs all combining will make that cool little like cut in the dirt or the rock. So that was kind of the objective too. And I'm surprised how well this technique actually works in vanilla. I'm quite surprised. I'm still surprised that it works this well. I mean, I did this technique also for the Coaster Bee Challenge when we did Vanilla Month, and I made a root beer themed mountain range, and it still worked out really well with the rocks in the mountains in vanilla. So I'm still quite surprised that vanilla can do this type of detailed stuff, so I'm quite happy with that. Onto the station. From the get-go I knew I was going to make two separate buildings kind of sitting next to each other to kind of give this building a little bit more interest instead of being one building. So red and green were the colors of choice. The green building was kind of be like a factory part of the mine, so this is where probably they stored fuel or the materials that they're mining from the rocks. So I'm assuming this is a gold mine of some sort, maybe, or a silver mine. Either or, I didn't really decide. And this actually helped making the building not so big, was to cut it up into two separate buildings. And I like the tower part of the green building. I think that's really cool. I don't know why it would be that tall. It just looks nice, and it's a point of interest for the guests to see from a distance. So they're like walking down the main street and they're like, hey, what's that building over there? Was that the mine train? Let me go there. And then that's kind of the philosophy behind that, is that it gets you attention. But I can just imagine that because the mine train coaster sits in the back of the park, it already is an interest for the guests to be like, hey, I see a mountain range. What's that all about? And they're walking through the town, getting the experience of the Western feel, and then they get to the mine train, like, oh, look at that ride. I want to go on that. And they go on it. So that was kind of the objective, to place it way in the back. And I think that's a normal thing. I think that's a normal thought process for a theme park to do, is to build your interesting stuff in the back so guests have to walk through your park, and as they're walking through the park they either get a drink or some food or buy merchandise, and then they go on the ride, and then that's their full day. Like, that's basically the objective here, is to I don't want to sound evil as a capitalist, but it's like you want them to spend as much money as possible before they get to whatever attraction they're trying to get to, and then they're going to do the same thing going out. So after they get on their ride and do a couple rides, their day's over, right? And then so they have to go through, I don't know, a gift shop to get some souvenirs, and they're out of the park, and they'll maybe spend hopefully an 8-hour day at your theme park. That's kind of the objective. But this is kind of the same thought process here for this park too. So one of the rides that I used for my little carnival area in the corner, I pulled the transformer, and I felt like I should theme this, and this actually worked out really well. I was surprised how well themed it was after I put a little building for the cover. Like, the whole theme also in most of my builds is that I want to make buildings useful, and at this point buildings are useful for covering up restaurants, covering up queues, covering up maybe a flat ride that can house it, and you'll see later on I'm going to use some flat ride. I'm going to make a flat ride and make a building in it, and so that's, I think at this point, most buildings I'm going to be using them as a sense of covering up things, but every once in a while I'll have to build a building for as a prop to kind of portray more of my theme or what I'm working on. But at this point I think most of the buildings here are useful. They will cover up something, or be a path cover, or be a queue cover of some sort, and it works out in my benefit actually, because I feel like I don't want to have a building that's just empty. I want it to be useful of some sort, so I will try to make it useful as much as possible. So this worked out really well. So as I continue to work on the mountain, because I kind of went back and forth, I'm bleeding through money at this point. For some reason I couldn't make enough funds, so moving the attractions around and making them higher price actually helped out a little bit. And geez, the rain in this level was a killer. I just did not like that the rain was happening every so often, and that was just killing it. Especially one of my coasters couldn't operate in the rain. I think it was the Wild Mouse. And the Wild Mouse had an issue too. I didn't realize when I redid the layout, it had a ball. It valleyed a lot in some places, so I had an additional chain lift somewhere to help it continue the layout, because it literally sat for 2 months while I was working on the rock work. It just didn't go back to the station, and then I finally got that alert. I've never had it before. It says, "Mine train coaster hasn't been back to the station in 12 minutes." I'm like, what? What happened? And so I went over and I saw it was just valley at a bottom of a hill. I'm like, why? Why did this happen? So I had to go redo that. So that was also hurting me in money wise too, because that Wild Mouse was making me buco bucks, but then it doesn't. I don't know. It doesn't make guests go in and out, right? You lose that money. So that was a little bit of a distressor there. Over here, I wanted to build a quick little maintenance shed for the mine train, and that's where I stuck another staff building. Funny thing though, staff buildings used to be more expensive, I think, in this game. They used to be $2,000. Now they're like $1,000. So I think they were nerfed a couple years ago. They were expensive. Depots are expensive too. They're like $2,000 to play staff. But off into this, finally finishing up this corner, I wanted to build a motion simulator because I got it through research. I'm like, oh, motion simulator? I haven't used one yet. So might as well make it like some Western motion simulator ride. So I have to cover up the motion simulator because it does not match the Western. So this was the perfect opportunity to do some more buildings and to have 2 buildings be 1. This is kind of what I've done before. So there's this yellow building and the blue building, and the blue building is kind of cut to suggest that there's this little gray concrete building in the back that houses the ride, kind of be realistic in a way. And then there you go. I have this little shop back here, but it houses a flat ride. It's going to be our motion simulator. It could be like, I don't know, the Bandit Roundup or something stupid that is something to do with Westerns, and the motion simulator is a wagon ride. I don't know. It could be anything we want at this point, but I kind of like that this end caps the area back here, and it has guests to be like, oh, I want to walk over here. And this area actually is a cool spot to go run and hide, because I'm always feeling like a theme park needs a place for you to go to kind of relax and get off the beaten path. And so this is the perfect spot to go. You get to hear the mine train still, you hear the coaster going, but you get to go and find a shaded spot where a bench is, and you go and take a break because you've been huffing and going to all the rides you were going to, and it's just a good place to kind of relax and recollect yourself before going on to the rest of your day. So I'm always always want a place to go and rest, and so I think most theme parks should have this. Disneyland has a whole bunch of little hidden areas where you can go and hide, and it's just a perfect place to go and kind of people watch and kind of just relax, have a popcorn snack or something. So that was kind of the objective over there. As the research continues to chug along, because I researched almost I think every ride in this scenario, a top spin was introduced. I was like, oh, this is perfect, I can do another flat ride decorational thing. So the queue cover was another adobe building. I'm going to make this adobe building a little different than my usual, the one I built before. So instead of a flat roof, it's a wooden roof and some pavilions kind of sitting there. And then I stuck the wooden pillars, or the wooden logs you want to say, on a different side of the building to give it some more interest, which is a little different. And then this little outcrop on top was kind of a decorational some sort. I was trying something, experimenting. It's not the best thing I've ever built, but I'm experimenting. And sometimes overthinking a build sometimes makes it not as pretty. So I kind of just did the simple thing, and then there you go, I got a cover. I like that it's a different style of structure or different material instead of using the wood all the time. And the adobe thing is actually helpful. So as I was continuing, I'm making buco bucks. I have now made money at this point, and it's funny, decoration is actually very important for this game. And if you decorate to your full extent to make sure that all the paths are at the green status of decoration, guests stay longer in your park, they're willing to spend more, and it is really cool to see that. So I highly encourage you guys to try to decorate your parks, because it does help in the long run that guests stay, their immersion levels are up, they stay in the park more, and it just helps. It helps a lot, and I know that excitement goes up when decorations are higher. So I think that like the Ferris wheel can go up a little higher in its stats because you add decoration to it. So right now I wanted to add in the corner here an additional restaurant, because at this point the furthest restaurants were the saloon and the beginning building of the park. Those are your two restaurants, and a third one felt it was appropriate, so I felt like adding a corn dog and a drink stand, because I just got the corn dog researched. That was good. The corn dog building, I think, is actually from the Taste of Adventure pack, so that was actually pretty cool that that was included into this scenario. So I was like, okay, cool. And then an additional restroom, because the closest restroom to us at this point was the adobe one next to the mine train, so that had to be added. This building I was gonna copy all the building styles were on the map. So the buildings that Josh made, I copied it and made this just a bigger building. And this later became the hotel, because I was realizing I have a saloon, but I have no hotel. So this became the giant hotel for the town of Dry Gulch. Who knows what the town's name? Dry Gulch sounds cool. Yeah, Dry Gulch, or maybe Orange Spire, because there's orange rocks here. I don't know. It's making Western names towns. So if you guys have a Western name for it, go for it. Put it in the comments. At this point, I'm just calling it whatever I want at this point. So this is just the continuing of the detailing, making sure that it looks like it's integrated into the area, adding the trees, the dirt, the rocks. And I do like this building in the back here. It looks really nice. You don't always have to fill up your parks when you're done with the goals. So that's kind of was the objective here, was just to finish up the corner here. And yeah, this looks really nice. So I'm going to leave you here, and we're going to go look at the rest of the park. I'll see you over there. Okay, welcome to Western Roundup. This is the final rendition of the park of what I finally have decorated. I'm just going to show you a tour of the entire land. We'll just start with the entrance area. So this is funny because this map has been like a good 10, it's on year 10, so this is about a 10, I want to say roughly a 10-hour build session, kind of split up in a couple days. But let's just start off with, so the carousel was put here already, that was in the beginning. And then we kind of ventured into building some of the other key areas. So this is the Twister ride, and then the barbershop over here. Yeah, the queue and buildings for the mine coaster, or the not mine. Well, it's a wild mouse, which is a mine cart. And oh, of course it rains. Of course it rains. That's fine. We're in January. Of course it's gonna rain. We're not gonna let that bother us. It's just rain. I've noticed that this map actually rains a lot. I didn't realize that it would do that a lot for a desert map. So I'm kind of curious why that was the decision to make it rain a lot in this map, but they did. But let's see here. What else do we gotta show? There's a barn here for the carousel. I think I've mentioned that before. Supplies for the jumper ride. I added this little decoration on top just to give it more western feel. So a couple pillars and a western wagon wheel. And then the saloon. I didn't get to do anything here because I couldn't figure anything out to decorate said front. So I'm just going to leave the saloon pretty plain. I'm still debating on that sign. If I test out that sign myself, maybe I'll just leave it in and send the map onto the workshop. I added in the transformer over here. This is a good spot to kind of stick it here because I wanted to fill in more of the corners and areas. I'm trying to close up the park as we continue on. Wow, there's really no more research for calm rides. Wow, I've like researched everything in this map now at this point, which is nice. Actually, just research more coasters. I've researched like a whole bunch of stuff. Over here is the motion simulator with a western facade and then a typical like normal type of building, concrete building with an air conditioning vent. And I think this is actually a smart move because when it rains a lot, guests flock here and kind of they go back here to kind of go rest and take a break. There's another break room inside this transfer shed for the mine train coaster. Speaking of the mine train coaster, here's the mine train coaster. I didn't name the ride, but it's kind of like a Big Thunder-esque type of ride. I'm quite surprised that I was able to pull off such a big Thunder Mountain type of thing here, and it actually worked out pretty well. So I'm quite surprised in that. And it's enjoyable actually to see that my mine trains work and all that cool stuff. So yeah, I'll just show you quickly what it looks like. Maybe we'll follow it. Actually, let's just follow it. Unfortunately, I don't know how to make these mine trains a little bit more intense because it's not as popular as I want it to be. But again, I like making my mine trains very sweeping. A lot of helixes, a lot of dips and turns, all that good stuff. But for some reason, the mine train coaster, like stat-wise, is very poor in trying to get guests on it. Even though it has a very high excitement, I think it's like 60. Let's go look. It's almost 60. It's 75. Medium intensity. I wish it was high intensity because high intensity rides really get you a lot of customers. But again, I'm not gonna skip the mine train. I was gonna build the mine train regardless because it needed to happen. So there's the mine train. And then I just added in some more front rides as I continue to wrap up the map. So the Ferris wheel was moved, add some weird little wagon wheel decorations. This actually fits really nice. That kind of just comes to the water and then just kind of be part of the walkway. And then I got a top scan. Felt that was good choice of flat ride. Made a very simple like adobe looking building like I did over here with this restroom over here. Kind of just made my own little version of it, a different type of it, if you want to say, and kind of made it that. Then I wanted to complete up with another restaurant because from this distance here, the closest restaurant's over here, and the next restaurant's over here. So we have 3 restaurants in the area, and this worked out to be the hotel instead of the saloon. So I'm like, okay, well this is gonna be the hotel, and so this became my little restaurant. This has corn dogs in it and a drink stand, and then an additional restroom was added. So in total there's about 3 restrooms. Actually there's 4 restrooms in the park. There's one right here actually. I added it to the yellow building. I shipped a sign there to say it's a restroom. But I want to put that sign, there you go, that's better. So yeah, this is an additional restroom I added just to help guests find it because while I was playing I was noticing a lot of guests doing that bathroom pose where they're like holding themselves like, oh, I gotta go. So I had to add another restroom to kind of mitigate that. And so that actually helped out because it seems like everybody seems to be quite comfortable in how the park is. But I do like how the shape of the park is. I think it looks really nice because it doesn't really have to match or fill in the entire park border. It kind of just loops around here kind of organically, and I enjoy all of it. My favorite thing is the mine train. It's like the thing I like doing the most is doing mine train builds, and this is what I did. So let's go on to see what the map does. Let's save real quick, and then we'll see what the map does and what trophy we get. I think it's going to be one of the... It's probably going to be the depot building, I think, is the trophy. Yep, it was the depot. I was right. Looks really nice. I think this was made by Josh. Yes, again, Josh made this map. There we go. Plop it down, and then it just reconnects here. So we have to do this map. This is what's it called? Coral Caldera. So this is the crater one. This is jungle themed. So yeah, that seems to be the one I have to finish then. Alrighty then. That was. There's really no choice now at this point. You have to do it, which is cool. Okay, so what does it say so far? So a wealthy entrepreneur has purchased this idyllic caldera in the middle of an ocean, wishes to turn it into a bustling attraction. Park entrance needs to remain free. Oh, interesting. I didn't know it was a free... Oh, so this is the first park we got a free entrance out of. Oh, we can't charge entrance fee. Interesting, interesting. Okay. Well, I have to make it some type of jungle theme, I think. Or maybe some... No, jungle theme seems to be the one to do it, because it's in the middle of the ocean. It's just an island. We can easily do a Jurassic Park theme, though. We could do that. I actually like that idea. Jurassic Park, Jurassic World, Jurassic Evolution type of thing. Yeah, we might do that. So that might be the next thing we'll do. So I want to thank you guys for watching and hanging out with me, and I want to thank my Patreons for the continued support. If you want to support me on Patreon, you can. You can find the link in the description. And we'll just continue chugging through this campaign. And I'll see you guys in the next video. Bye.